like in one of the case studies, I linked the conclusion with the justice philosophy of Rawls. Since I also I'm from PSIR, so that justice philosophy of Rawls I
Hello,
was able to link.
everybody. Today I have with me Kumar Saurabh. He is serving as a civil servant in the Indian Information Service right now. Got selected in 2021. Actually, his name actually appeared in the reserved list, and then he got subsequently got the service. Appeared in the interview again in 2022. Um, Rest, I would like to welcome Saurabh to interact with our viewers. So,
Thank you
Saurabh,
for giving this platform. I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
I just want to know in the beginning, how long has this journey been? You look fairly young. Like, when did you start preparing? Where just your briefly you can tell about your academic background, and when did you start thinking of appearing for this exam, and how has the journey been till now? So just briefly, if you can tell us.
The journey till now has been really bumpy because two interviews I have given. One I unfortunately flunked. The first prelims I gave in 2020 only. The my graduation year also is 2020. So
Hmm.
with my graduation year only, I appeared in prelims. Obviously, I wasn't up to the mark, and the paper also that year was tricky comparison to 2019 and 2018. So I scored abysmally low in the prelims. However, subsequently in 2021 attempt, I somewhat improved and cleared forest prelims as well. So 2021 attempt, I got selected through reserve list. 2022 interview out, have skipped this year, planning to give the 2024 attempt. And I am graduate of 2020 from UTU, BTech in Electronics and Communications Engineering.
Okay, okay. A little bit about your schooling as well, Saurabh, so that like if somebody is preparing from any place in India, if they can relate to it,
Mhm.
like what kind of people are getting selected, etc.
So I'm basically from the bordering district of India and Nepal. In Sitamarhi district of Bihar, I am from, and in that district there is a small place called Pupuri. There is the DAV public school from where I had my initial schooling. In the
Mm-hmm.
neighboring town of Darbhanga, class 11th and 12th, this is Media Academy. I did my schooling in 11th and 12th from there. Finally, after JEE examination through engineering, I had my engineering degree from the Uttarakhand Technical University. So basically, three institutions: DAV, Jesus Media Academy, and Uttarakhand Technical University. These three are my educational credentials.
Very refreshing. I think there are many interviews of people who are securing like the single digit ranks, etc. But we also need to understand that not everybody is getting into the IAS, because the civil services offers you a lot of services. All of them are grade A services. You are becoming officers in different aspects of governance. So
Mhm.
this will be a very interesting interview as well. So Saurabh, I would like to begin with your. I can see your mark sheet. In
Mhm.
2021, you scored 949 in total. In
Mhm.
2022, I think you scored 944, a
Mhm.
little bit
Mhm.
lower.
Mhm.
In So in 2021, your GS score has been really good in GS paper 2 and 4. Uh,
Mhm.
I can see in 2021 and 22 both. In 22, he scored 120 in GS paper 4. So
Mhm.
right now, because people are preparing for mains of 2023,
Mhm.
so what has been your strategy for GS paper 4? If you can, like whatever source genuinely you have used, and in whatever way you have prepared. So regarding GS paper 4, if we can discuss.
Uh, Mostly, if I compare my score of GS Paper 4 in 2021 and 2022, one thing that stands out that I have achieved somewhat good marks in both the years, 110 and 120. However, it's not 140s. That should ideally be to be in the uh, top German and top strata. However, the thing for GS4 that I personally feel is you must have a knack for the thinkers and especially the terms that are mentioned in the syllabus.
Mhm.
These terms like ethical values, uh, respect, ethics, accountability, adaptability, these things are somewhat which are very basic to the society and very basic in nature as far as the administration or this mostly this examination process is concerned. So my strategy personally was to Google these terms and to get a very exact definition, because in my batch only Shruti Sharma was topper, and I was referring to her notes in 2022, and I saw that she has made a kind of very crisp and short definition for each terms, and also followed by examples in almost every point she writes. So this, I
Mhm.
think, the definition of the terms followed by the examples for each and every points you write, and in conclusion, linking it with some sort of philosophical thinkers or some sort of political thinkers, even constitutional articles, even, I think it fairly fetches you good mark. A. B. In my 2022 attempt, I felt about GS4 that mostly UPSC also quantitatively, probably in the quantitative terms, is also measuring you, like like GS4 paper in 2022 was really lengthy. So I think if you have to complete your GS4 paper, then you must also have a good practice, a sufficient practice for writing as well. So gathering knowledge from various sources and also fast handwriting, I think these two will be somewhat considered also in coming years for GS4 as well.
So, Saurabh, like let's talk about 2022 paper. So, generally, what you have mentioned till now, if I
Hmm.
can summarize, you mentioned that using philosophical thinkers, if you can use them, if you can use some
Hmm.
examples, as well as
Hmm.
if you can write fast. So, these are majorly the three things that
Hmm.
you need to be well versed with. If we talk
Hmm.
about exactly what you did in 2022 paper, so 22 paper was very lengthy. First of all, about the
Very,
case studies, if I can ask you, so
was
all the
really.
case studies looked very similar. Same kind of dilemmas were being asked. Similar situations were being put in every case study when you were going from question 7 to question, I think, 12 or so. You were finding the same sort of case studies. You were able to still score really well because this paper was very different from 2021. So
Quite
how
different.
did you approach the case studies? Like, what was your mindset? And like, did you write the same sort of things in every answer because the questions were very similar? So if you can remember some of it, at least the perception of it was like that.
So while you were right that questions were almost similar, and I felt too while I was attempting those answers, attempting those questions, I almost felt like I am repeating the answers in some of the questions. However, one thing that I did in case in terms of case study, I firstly attempted case studies only. So I had my fresh mind, the thinkers I had ready, and also since I also have PSIR background, so I was able to connect some of the political thinkers and their ideology, like essentialism, utilitarianism. All these I was able to put somewhere in the conclusion of those case studies. So
Mhm,
since I also had ready-made materials for most of these case studies, when you write your test series, so
mhm,
almost you write answers like these only, like how you have to approach one particular sort of issue. So you must have some sort of ready-made issue, because the case studies themselves are so longer to read that it would consume almost 2 minutes only in reading for the entire paragraph. So you must have some sort of ready-made materials and also link with your optional also. I feel even anthropology, even philosophy, public administration, these optionals are somewhat linking with these case studies. So prepare those ready-made materials, use them in case studies. Like in one of the case studies, I uh, linked the conclusion with the justice philosophy of Rawls. Since I also have, I'm from PSIR, so that justice philosophy of Rawls I was able to link to. So these kind of linkages, your raw material knowledge, your ready-made knowledge will be tested in GS4, and you must have to apply that in these kind of lengthy papers.
Saurabh, as you're focusing on a lot on using thinkers, so since you have PSIR as your background, so obviously you are
Mm-hmm.
reading about these thinkers. Apart from it, we also read about these thinkers as part of our syllabus of GS paper 4. So
Yes.
can you like briefly tell us, like in 2021 and 22, if there are
Mm-hmm.
about there are exactly 19 questions, including the case studies.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
how many thinkers, and like if you can like point out also like which thinkers exactly you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever names can come to your mind. So how many thinkers exactly like could have you could have quoted in those two exams in respectively in each exam?
Uh, if I take into account my questions which were not from case studies, the theoretical questions, almost in every questions I had my ready-made data for all the terms, like for tolerance, even for administration, for James Palavi, you have all these thinkers I had ready made. I used them
Mhm.
in extensive manner in theoretical questions.
Mhm.
Like even I used the wordings of Albert Einstein in some of the questions. So this is
Mhm.
how I have to approach. Like if I
Mhm.
see one word tolerance, or even for let's say the um, ethics or the values, for that you
Mhm.
have thinkers like Vivekanand. You can quote Mahatma Buddha as well. These type
Mhm.
of thinkers you have to keep ready made in your mind, so as to use them as long as you see those terms. Like you are seeing
Mhm.
the term of tolerance, so use
Mhm.
the let's say the law commission, or use some sort of data from the Mahatma Gandhi quotes. These would be adding some value at the very end of the question, at the very fag end, when all your theoretical points have been made. At the very fag end, when you write these kind of thinkers and quote them, I believe that it generally leaves a good impression in mind of the questions, in the minds of the copy checkers. So these were
So,
some of the quotes I were able to use.
so the thinkers that you were using, were you
Mhm.
using them always at the end of the answer, or you were also using somewhere in between as well?
So this year, uh, I had strategically thought in my mind that I will use the thinkers in the end. However, I am not sure if if using those thinkers in the very start will also be able to yield the similar kind of marks or similar results. I exactly am not sure, but I strategically had thought for myself that I will be using them at the end. So this was
Okay,
my
okay.
own strategy only to use them at the
Okay, okay, Saurabh. Secondly, in 2021 and 22, did you actually complete the paper, as well as, when I'm saying complete the paper, did you fill in those 4 pages in case studies, or did you fill like all the 2 pages in every question that you get? Like, how much of space were you leaving in every question, as well as did you complete all the questions in 21 and 22?
So I was reading somewhere a blog only about the UPSC preparation, and in one blog I have now forgot the name of that particular topper. He had written that now completing the questions are really minimum threshold that you have to achieve to. In 2016, 17, and 18, it was one of those big achievements if you would complete the paper. But
Mm-hmm.
now almost everyone completes the paper. So this is the minimum threshold that you have to achieve now. There is absolutely no leg room, no leg space for that. The next comes, are you able to complete the paper? Well, in my case, I completed the pages, filled up all the pages. However, I am in knowledge of others of my friends who are now in IPS and also in IRS. They didn't complete the paper. They simply used flowcharts and tree diagrams and some sort of those things, and they have achieved equally good marks. So I think I would leave it up to the discretion of the those who are attempting the mains paper only. However, attempting the question is one where I would say emphatically I would say that yes, this is now the bare minimum that you have to achieve.
Also, Saurabh, when you're completing the paper, as you said that you completed all the questions, you filled all the pages.
Mhm.
So there is a time limit that we have, if we break it down according to the marks of every question. So for 10 marker, you get
Mhm.
about 7 minutes. So when you are doing time management in the paper, so
Mhm.
how exactly you go about it? Because in the beginning, when you start writing, you generally tend to take more minutes in the first answer. So regarding the time management, particularly in the ethics paper, like how did you go about it?
So the time management in the mains examination, in my personal opinion, comes from the kind of knowledge you accumulate while in your preparation only. If you have good enough material, ready-made material for all the questions that are going to appear, almost the questions are known. Like in GS2, GS3, you can even predict some of the questions that are going to come. Like there will be
Mm-hmm.
certainly one question from society that would be in philosophical nature, connecting it with religion, connecting it with caste. Even this year,
Mm-hmm.
there was one bouncer sort of question in GS1 about sect.
Sect
So
and.
so
Mhm.
these are some predicted questions that would come.
Mhm.
So you
Mhm.
must have some sort of ready-made and prepared data for that. Your writing
Mhm.
speed will proportionally will be dependent on how you have prepared for these things. If you have well enough data, if you have well enough knowledge about these topics, your writing speed will automatically be fast. However, the
Mhm.
next dilemma comes, as you were rightly mentioning, that when we
Mhm.
start, we try to devote somewhat more time in starting of the questions. Now,
Mhm.
this would come from your regular practice of test series and regular writing of answers. When you
Mm-hmm.
write answers, you know that you have to adhere to a particular time limit, and then only you can proceed and be able to complete the entire question paper. So I think first, accumulation of knowledge, extensive
Mm-hmm.
reading is somewhat that
Mm-hmm.
is required. That is the minimum you have
Mm-hmm.
to do. The second one is the test series practice. These two will be able to solve this dilemma of completing the questions in the minimum time, or the you say kind of some sort of trade-off between the time and knowledge. You will be able to scuttle when when you are preparing well and appearing in more number of test series. Then you will be able to do.
Also, Saurabh, when you are like when you start your GS paper, any GS paper, if we are talking about in this case the GS paper 4, you starting with your first case study, question number 7. So, will you adhere to the time limit of 14 minutes, about 14 minutes that you get in a case study, or will you like allow yourself to get like have a couple of more minutes in the initial two case studies? So, how will you go about it generally?
So here I would leave it. I personally feel this is something that would depend on the personal one's own opinion. My
Mm-hmm.
opinion says that since every question has similar amount of marks, that case study, it's the fixed marks that there is. So
Mm-hmm.
I personally believe that you have to devote equal time in all of the case studies.
Mm-hmm.
There would be some temptations that some of the case studies you will be able to attempt more, like even some
Mm-hmm.
technological solutions you may have, applying drones and some sort of technology these days they are using for answers. You may have
Mm-hmm.
that, but please avoid that temptation. This is my
Mm-hmm.
personal opinion, that when you
Mm-hmm.
are appearing for mains, you must know
Mm-hmm.
that almost every question carries similar marks, equal marks. Even if you don't know the answer of one particular question, I really believe you have to attempt that, because you don't have other options. You don't have a choice. You have to attempt them. Everybody is attempting. You too have to attempt them if you want to win race. So for that, I this is my own opinion that you have to devote equal amount of time for every questions. It
So,
may differ. Like some of them
so
may
right
be
from the
writing.
beginning, right from the beginning, you mean that you should adhere to the time limit that
Yes,
is there for every question.
yes. My personal
So,
opinion says that you have to adhere to that.
okay, all right. So, sort of the next question, when you're talking about answer writing, you're saying that regular practice in the answer write in test series, etc., is going to help you basically build that tempo and build that practice and that skill set to write really fast and according to
Mhm,
the time limit as well. So,
mhm,
what sort of practice did you do? Did you do daily answer writing? So, I'm talking about both kinds of people. You writing your 2021 means maybe you started your preparation 2020 for the mains part as well. So when you
mhm,
were in the same kind of time frame, when the next prelims is about 11 months away, so at that time, were you building content or were you also doing some sort of daily answer writing or test series? And later on, if you can answer also, during your 2021 and 22 mains, when you get those 3 months, so in
mhm.
those 3 months, did you do extensive daily answer writing along with your test series, and in what permutation and combination did you go about it? And also, like, what did you learn from this preparation, that what should ideally be done according to your own view? So something on that, if you will.
So I would say my own experience only. In my case, 2021 prelims got bit delayed because of COVID second wave. So what I did was I also accumulated resources along with I did daily practice of answer writing. Two answers I used to write almost on daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And in hindsight, now I see that those really helped in my 2021 attempt. What
Mm-hmm.
happens in those 3 months of 3 months between prelims results and mains examination, that it is this slot for pinnacle of your preparation, the best of
Mm-hmm.
the preparation, the most rigorous of preparation you will be doing in those 3 months. So save those 3 months for the best of the test writing, best of the answer writing, value addition, completing in time, fast and writing, appropriate answer. All of those you leave those 3 months for that. Besides
Mm-hmm.
them, I am of the opinion, and now since I have appeared for the two subsequent mains, I have the opinion that you must have a tempo of writing answers at least till 2 months prior to prelims. Till 2 months
Mm-hmm.
prior to prelims, you must do regular practice of answer writing. This sort of
Mm-hmm.
gives you upper hand when it comes to the prelims results. When you pass your prelims, and when you are once
Mm-hmm.
again going to write the mains answers, then you have a phenomenon of remembering those answers which you had practiced prior to the 2 months before the prelims. So I believe that you must have a schedule for daily answer writing practice, that will
Mm-hmm.
fetch you good marks really. Fetch you
Mm-hmm.
good marks, and also will be some sort of mentally relieving you once you clear the prelims and will be in that pinnacle of preparation phase. So I am of the opinion the daily answer writing practice should really be done prior to prelims as well.
Sort of for people who are appearing in mains this time.
Hmm.
So you have about 90 days uh, if we count from now. So
Hmm.
in the 90 days time that you have, or if you also add like 10-15 days that have been that have gone by. So in those many days, I have been of the opinion, after like experiencing this exam and interacting with a lot of people as well, that you cannot write like 16 17 gs tests and like 10 12 essay tests and maybe the test series which is of like 15
Hmm.
tests or 12 tests. So somehow if you can limit yourself to writing 8 gs tests, maybe 8 optional tests, or maybe 4 to 6 essay tests, not more than
Hmm.
20 or 22, then actually you are able to prepare. Otherwise you will always feel the fear of missing out, and you'll always feel overburdened that I have to write those many tests. So what opinion do you possess, like how many tests uh, at the minimum that you should be keeping for yourself while you're writing mains in those 90 days, because you need to revise a lot as well at the same time.
So this year, since I also have joined the training of Indian Information Service, and also
Mm-hmm.
one of my batchmates, only Anirudh Yadav, got ranked 8.
Mm-hmm.
So based on our own discussion in the academy, I really feel that it depends on to how one is proceeding towards mates.
Mm-hmm.
I know even single digit rankers who
Mm-hmm.
have got good marks by writing around 10 to 15 tests only. And I also
Mm-hmm.
know of the persons who have got around 400 ranks by writing around 30 of
Mm-hmm.
the test series between these 3 months. So this will entirely depend on to how you are preparing for. However, if optimum number is to be taken into the mind, then I think 8 GS tests are something that is more than enough. 8 GS tests dividing into sections, that one half section in one GS test, another half section in another GS test. 8 GS tests are good enough. Furthermore, you have to also prepare for your optionals. So around 5 optional tests you also have to keep in mind. Essay these days are becoming quite competitive. 125 plus you have to score somehow. So for
Mm-hmm.
that also you have to keep around 5 to 10 tests for essay as well. So 8 GS, 5 optional, around 5 essay tests I would be recommending.
All right, all right. Shubham, sorry, Saurabh, your GS2 marks, if we talk about, because your optional is also PSIR. Um,
Mhm.
Generally, I've seen this in many mark sheets and interacting with friends, that generally who has the people who have PSIR, they will get good marks in paper two. This doesn't really imply to like people having sociology and then getting good marks in GS1. This is not something that happens actually generally. But so when you're writing your GS2 answers, you consistently got like in both the mains, you gotten good marks in GS paper two. So in GS paper two, if you can like give us a few things that you cannot miss, and something that you must include in your answers, something on that if you can talk about.
So the GS paper 2, it has two components. The first one is polity and the second one is international relations parts. For
Mm-hmm.
international relation part, you must have good knowledge of the history about those things and also current happenings. Like last year they asked about AUKUS, AUKUS.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those recent happenings. So you must be well versed with the editorial section of the newspapers. It would prepare you well enough for the international relations sections. As far as the polity part of the GS2 is concerned, you must be having exact knowledge of the constitution amendments, constitution articles, so that at least you mention them at the very introduction or at the very conclusion of the answers. Like this year also there was one question about the right to education, those fundamental duty. So these kind of questions, whenever these are, or for that matter, like comparing the constitutions of USA and India, so these kind
Mm-hmm.
of questions requires exact knowledge about the polity section. This would be
Mm-hmm.
coming from the daily news section, the daily
Mm-hmm.
newspaper reading, the editorial section. These would be really helpful in your GS2 polity section preparation. And as far as international relations, you must have good enough knowledge about the recent happenings, current happenings around the world. This year also there were questions about the Indo-Sri Lanka relationships. So these are some of the really current affairs questions that are coming in GS paper 2. So current happenings, along with the knowledge of politics section like the constitutional articles, some of the committee if you are able to mention, like Dinesh Goswami committee is quite favorite for the electoral reforms. the Indrajit Gupta, these kind of committee you should be preparing beforehand, so that you are able to quote at the end of the answers, as if the conclusion also looks somewhat wholesome in comparison to the body and introduction that you are writing in the answers. So this, I think, it would be the wholesome preparation for the GS2 that would be coming from your own polity section knowledge and also from the current happenings around the world.
For GS2, also, Saurabh, when you're saying that you must mention something from the newspaper. Recently, I was also talking to Aditya Sharma. He said that from the newspaper, sometimes he used to quote, um, like once when a Supreme Court judge says something, he used to take it down in his notes, and then he used some of them in the answers as well. So, so particularly for people who are writing mains this year, for both kinds of people, those who are
Mhm.
writing mains this year, how they should be using the newspaper now, uh, like how much you should be taking out from the newspaper, and like should you maintain a separate copy according to your own experience, and also for people who are writing, who are going to appear in the 2024 prelims and mains subsequently. So how do you use the newspaper for GS2 and GS3 particularly?
So I would be starting from the GS3 only.
Mm-hmm.
One particular and very interesting thing with GS3 is that you need a lot of data, lot of
Mm-hmm.
pinpointed data you need in GS3. So that would be coming from the newspapers since they are repository of those data. So you
Mm-hmm.
must have some sort of short notes prepared
Mm-hmm.
so that you at least add those data that are coming in those 3 months of the pinnacle of your preparation phase. You just
Mm-hmm.
read and somewhat prepare those data so as to quote them in GS3. And as
Mm-hmm.
far as the usage of newspapers for GS2 is concerned, the newspapers like The Hindu and even Indian Express, they have nowadays coming with this explained section. So these explained sections are really good source of knowledge and really good source of quoting source, which you
Mm-hmm.
can use in your GS2 answers. So I
Mm-hmm.
would recommend in these 3 months of your preparation, have a very rigorous look on editorial and explained section. These
Mm-hmm.
two would be the area from where the data that you would be quoting and using in the GS2 and GS3 answers would be coming. This is my personal opinion that editorial section and explain are somewhat which should be now favored in these 3 months, leaving behind those news sections which now I feel don't carry that much of relevance in these 3 months.
And do you take down like points in your copy or in a digital note from the newspaper on a daily basis whenever you are reading it from the explained
Yes,
section, etc.?
digitally I have prepared notes for the newspapers that I would be saying. However, to write each and every point now, I believe it would be only add-ons to your notes that you have already prepared for your mails. So I would be saying that if you are not repeating what you have already written in your mains notes, then please don't go for repetition. Just have some sort of digitally notes prepared that if any extra information or any interesting information you are encountering in the newspapers, just add them in your digital sections, which should be and you should be using them as some sorts of value addition in your answers.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be saying that digital notes can be used in these 3 months for your GS2 preparation from the newspapers.
Also, sort of, when you are making notes for GS paper 2 and 3,
Mhm.
generally one problem that people encounter in particularly these two subjects as well as in GS, some part of GS1, there are
Mhm.
topics like resource distribution, uh, location of industries, topics such as the governance and social justice topics, as well
Mhm.
as some topics such as science and technology, disaster management. For these people generally find it difficult to find the exact resources from there where they can get the content for static. So we all know about the other proper subjects that we have: history, geography, the basic physical geography, and your polity and your economy, etc. And so for these smaller topics, like, because they are also equally important, so what sources did you use for these topics, if you can like mention in.
So you were rightly mentioning that these are really short topics, but almost assured questions are coming every year from these topics. Like resource distribution, there is fixed question that will be coming from these topics. Even
Mhm.
internal security, I will be putting in those small topics section only. So there are fixed questions that will be coming from them. I believe that for that you have to have two layered preparation. The first, you have to prepare your own notes. Like from
Mhm.
the static knowledge, you have already cleared prelims, so you have good enough static knowledge for these sections. You have to use them in your note section. And the second one is current happenings. If you are able to link some of these static portions with the current happenings around the world, I believe it generally leaves somewhat good impression in the mind of copy checkers. Prepare your own notes, use static questions. Some of the sources that I used, for example, for disaster management, I referred to the exact notes that were given by one topper from my own state, Subham Kumar sir. He actually uploaded his entire notes for disaster management. I really believe that was really crisp and helped me a lot. So you have to use them. A very crisp form notes, very static portion. You have to even quote some of the committees, some of the second ARC reforms. So you don't need to read too much about these things. These are really short topics, short questions. Use the committees, use the datas. There are some of the toppers notes for that. Use them. They will be really handy for these sections. Static knowledge you already have since you have cleared pre. Some current happenings if you are able to quote, that is really good if you are able to leave some more good impression in the mind of copy checkers.
So Saurabh, just to sum you up, you say that you maintain make your own notes based on the static knowledge. You can Google it, or maybe you can refer to some of the notes
Google
of coaching institutes, and then you can top it up with toppers notes, etc. for these
toppers
particular
notes.
topics. Yes. So now one question that I generally want to ask to everybody who is like scoring well in a particular GS paper. Uh,
Mhm.
so there are some questions that are going to be asked, as you said. So for example, the left-wing extremism question, the organized crime question, the border security question, the question on SHGs, uh, self-help groups, the question, general question related to like the most prominent international relation happening that is going on, so probably G20 this year. So when you know that these questions are going to come for sure, you do not exactly know what is going to happen in the exam. When you go and sit in the exam, uh,
Mhm.
so for these particular questions, like you are you extremely well prepared because you have written them enough number of times, so you exactly know what to write in the intro, what to write in the body, what kind of diagram to make, etc. So for like what is your mindset, and what how do you prepare for these questions which are going to come for sure? And you can mention your PSIR optional as well in this particular segment.
So I will be sharing my experience about 2021 mains. In
Mm-hmm.
2021 mains, there was one issue about UNFCCC meeting, UN climate change meeting that had happened in Glasgow, and
Mm-hmm.
Panchamrit principles around that. It was
Mm-hmm.
almost sure that this question would come. And
Mm-hmm.
in GS3 also, in my PSIR option also, the question was
Mm-hmm.
repeated. So what I
Mm-hmm.
had I had done was I had already prepared enough data for these. Like I had already in my mind also the mind map I had prepared that I would be using spoke model. I would be using
Mm-hmm.
flow charts for mentioning how the five principles that India has used. So
Mm-hmm.
for this, I particularly somewhat leaned on the newspapers, the current affairs section. This
Mm-hmm.
current affairs section would be really helping you in tackling these kind of questions. And one another thing that I also used was linking these answers with the committee. There are various committees, various recommendations that are there, like Gadgil, Madhav Gadgil Committee for Western Ghats and all these. You quote them in the answers. Use data, prepare data beforehand for these questions. These are sure short questions. They will be coming really well, like G20, 85% of the world GDP. Quote them. They would be really good because everyone would be doing. So this is the minimum threshold that you have to reach up to. Code those data, prepare your own resources from the newspapers, and add committees, your own static knowledge. This would be really handful, and also it would be giving somewhat of quantity plus quality in your answers when you be approaching the answers, approaching the questions which are almost sure short that would be coming.
This is really interesting to note that actually whenever I interact with people who have scored really well, they do
Mhm.
have a mindset where they know that these questions are going to come, and they are
Mhm.
very well prepared for them. So probably those answers are way better compared to others who are not well prepared. And do you also believe in this fact ki, when you're writing the whole GS paper, one particular GS paper, 20 questions, so there will be about 8 to 10 questions that you will be that you can write really well, and then there will be 5 questions where you will be writing below average. So for example, from here also one more question. So questions like the how so there was a question in 2022 mains from science and technology, where it was about when the leaves are falling from the tree, how are they degenerating, etc. So and there was a question on Cyberdome back in 2019, I remember.
19.
And there are questions. So these sort of questions, when you do not have, so Bose Einstein condensate was asked when I was writing the mains of 2018. So
You
how do
know
you
me,
deal with
Jim.
such questions? Yes. So like, so the question, you can answer now. Yes.
Yes, uh, you have almost touched the chord of how mains attempt is done nowadays. Also, sir, one particular train nowadays is coming in GS paper 3. That the
Mm-hmm.
scores are almost certain that would be coming in range of 70, 80, or
Mm-hmm.
if you are really, if you have, I don't know how they judge this extraordinary answers and how. So you will be reaching the threshold and even crossing 90s or 100 also. So I personally believe that in GS3 questions, at least two questions would be really bouncers, which absolutely nobody has the knowledge as to how, what even write for that. For example, this year only, even proper biology students only would be able to tackle how chromosomes and all these leaves function. So I believe for that you have to bank on your own instinct, your own school level knowledge, that you are able to write something or somewhat on those answers. However,
Mm-hmm.
your scoring and your marks would be coming from the answers which are really competitive in nature, like where the answers would be coming from most of the aspirants and community from those students who are writing mains. They would be attempting the answers. There only competition comes, like the question intensive farming. There would be the proper judgment as to how the answers is being written and how answers are being presented. However,
Mm-hmm.
those which are not controllable, like the chromosome question or even the vaccine comparison question, those are really
Mm-hmm.
pinpointed knowledge that are required. I personally
Mm-hmm.
believe it would be really difficult for you to prepare each and every
Mm-hmm.
topic that at least GS3, in my own personal
Mm-hmm.
opinion, is everything under the sun. So it would be really difficult for you to prepare for those questions. However, the questions which are like where the competition lies, intensive farming, infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
budgeting, there would be the
Mm-hmm.
questions where you have the scope and the space to answer them properly and also to score the marks. So you focus on them, prepare for them, and also be ready for what really bounces these days they are giving in GS3. You simply cannot control them, leave it to the discretion of the examiner only.
Just a follow up on that, there was a question in 2022 related to the cyclone color coded warnings. So what did you write in that particular question, if you can remember? And when you saw
So,
that question, because most of the people actually like did not remember how many colors actually are there in the warnings, or if there are colors. So like, how did you approach that particular question, if you can remember and recall?
yes, since in my case I started my preparation for UPSC in my college days only. So
Mm-hmm.
I probably remember in third year or fourth year only there was one cyclone. I have forgotten the name of that cyclone, and in that cyclone there were this color coded warnings and all this written. So in my
Mm-hmm.
college only I had some sort of idea that there are three layers of warnings that are first given to chief secretary of that state and then to the DM and then so on. So
Mm-hmm.
I had some sort of vestige knowledge about that topic, and
Mm-hmm.
fortunately, I could use them. In
Mm-hmm.
my room, only this year's rank 104, and my colleague, only Babu, in Indian Information Service, he also was there, and he
Mm-hmm.
said that he simply couldn't attempt that question and couldn't write in that GS paper
Mm-hmm.
one question. I fairly remember that question came. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the questions where you have to use your legacy knowledge if you have
Mm-hmm.
applied it. Like you have written you have read so much of the things, you have cleared prelims these days. Now itself is you we were meeting home secretary and he said that in their days the prelims was qualifying in nature, but nowadays prelims in itself is like the full entire examination process of UPSC. So since you have cleared UPSC, you have good enough knowledge. Use your legacy knowledge. These questions can also be answered by linking something like survey dome questions in Kerala. I remember some of the toppers talks where they said that they linked it with cyber security. I foresee they mentioned, and some this is how they tackle the answers. So
So,
this
so I
you
think,
also
sir,
have it.
this is very interesting. That you're saying you're giving a really good term to it, legacy knowledge. So, legacy knowledge, everybody has legacy knowledge, but sometimes we do not trust it enough to so that we can use it and write it in the paper. I think one keyword that was given by Gaurav Budani, I don't know, like if somebody had talked about it before as well. He used to say
Mhm.
sister concepts. If a similar concept exists in some other domain, so for example, the AQI warnings are there. There are some colors. There will be some hazard warning. There will be some normal warning. So so you can relate it. If you do not know anything, then you can basically improvise there, and then you can write those points because just using common sense, etc. So this is a new keyword, an interesting keyword, which people can bank upon. you can use your legacy knowledge. uh, sort of this is a very detailed sort of an interview. We are going to discuss everything in detail. So
Mhm.
uh, in 2022 and 21, your experiences have been related to, like, since we are talking about your GS paper 2 and 4, we have talked about GS paper 3, you have
Mhm.
also touched. In GS paper 1, I saw that your score actually dipped a bit. In 2021 you scored somewhere around 104, in 2022, sorry, 2021 you scored 104 or something, and then
Mhm.
in 2022 you scored,
Mhm.
I think 89 or somewhere around 90.
Mhm.
So
90. Mhm.
can you actually, when you come out of the exam hall, were you able to understand, or were you able to conclude that I'll be scoring more or less based on your performance in the paper? First that question.
uh, I'm pretty sure I will be answering this with entire honesty.
Mm-hmm.
When I completed my GS1 paper, I knew that my GS paper one marks would be somewhat lesser than what I scored in GS1. But I was
Mm-hmm.
expecting around 95. It is 5 marks lesser than that. So,
Mm-hmm.
in my case, I was really certain that it's like some of the answers I was not able to attempt in
Mm-hmm.
really satisfactory manner, like that societal impact question of lockdowns, or even the
Mm-hmm.
sect question. These were
Mm-hmm.
really answers which prompted me to think a lot. And I
Mm-hmm.
believed, even while completing the answers, I believed like I have somewhat missed the core answers or the core knowledge which was
Mm-hmm.
required in those answers. This would
Mm-hmm.
be the natural feeling once you complete your mains paper. Like in GS paper 4, I really knew that I'm going to score really good marks. It is
Mm-hmm.
not that good, like 130 is 140, it is not, but it is 120, which is like
120 is
really good marks.
excellent. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
So
so yes. So you were completing.
so you know beforehand, like when you complete your mains answers, you know really beforehand as to how you will be scoring. Prelims these days are dicey in comparison to that. Mains, you know that you have completed your answers, you have touched the core knowledge that are requirement, you will be scoring really good marks. I think mains nowadays is becoming objective,
So basically you're saying that mains is very predictable, as well as
in my
unlike
opinion.
prelims, when you come out of the exam hall, uh, you exactly sort of have some sort of knowledge that you'll be scoring somewhere here. Aprajit Lohan in 2020, I think he got a rank in the 180s, became an IPS officer of Bihar cadre. So I think he mentioned after, like, he got selected, that after writing his mains, he he came to his room and then he just predicted, like, these many marks I'll be getting in GS 1, 2, 3, 4. He got exactly those marks in the final uh, selection, and accordingly he got a rank. So this is something like mains you can actually predict based on your
Yes.
own performance in the while you write, and then you get the feeling that, okay, I've written really good answers there. So a similar feeling happened with me as well. In optional paper 2 this year, I scored 163. So when I came out of the exam hall, I knew that I've written something really interesting in some of the answers, and basic content is already written. So I'll be getting something phenomenal this time. So moving on from this particular question, let's go towards your optional preparation. You scored 251 in PSIR in 2021, and 2000 in 2022 you scored 261, 10 marks more. Yes. So uh, how did you, like, prepare for PSIR? As you, like, you were saying in the beginning, before we started the interview, that you prepared on your own, everything on your own, then you joined some test series, etc. So regarding PSIR, if you can give a brief uh, view of your own understanding of the paper, and, like, how did you approach it, and based on your knowledge of these two attempts, when you are going to sit in the next year's paper, how will you get more than 300? That probably would be your target.
So this year, the rank 8 Anirudh, I was talking to, since he is also a batchmate in the information service, we were
Mm-hmm.
talking as to what extra and how extra marks can be fetched. So
Mm-hmm.
he referred that the optional is the one area where extra marks can be fetched,
Mm-hmm.
and your entire performance, your even your advancement in the service, your advancement in the ranks would be entirely dependent on how you are uh, faring, how you are attempting your optional papers.
Mm-hmm.
I, as far as my own PSIR strategy and PSIR preparation is concerned, I always believed that PSIR was the one option I chose because I had interest in international relations sections, and also Indian political thought. Indian political section is one area where I generally have interest. Even if I wouldn't have prepared for UPSC, then I would be tracking all those things. So since optionals are generally those areas where you have interest, so
Mm-hmm.
I believe that you also apply your own knowledge. It would be giving some sort of authenticity in your answers. Also, these days for almost every optionals, you have entire sort of materials, almost curated contents on the
Mm-hmm.
internet. The
Mm-hmm.
toppers talks, the toppers notes, the coaching material notes, almost everything are there. Use them. However, the one thing that I have encountered in almost every of those toppers which I prepared, which have got good enough marks in optionals, that they have relied on IGNU content. So
Mm-hmm.
so I am also trying to incorporate in my next attempt, if I get my time from training and all this, that I will be incorporating IGNU materials in my optional answers and optional preparations. This would be the only add-on that I'll be doing in my next attempt. The another one problem with the optionals are the scaling problems and all these. I believe these are something that are not in control of the aspirants. So as an aspirant, we can only think that how we have to approach our answers. These things I really don't know how I have to tackle them.
Saurabh, regarding your PSIR, there are two papers that you have. The paper
Mhm.
one includes your Western political thought, and in the paper two, you actually have a, a paper which is more linked to the current affairs. Uh,
International
I
relations,
believe
yes.
that is the case. So,
Mm.
so in paper one and paper two, when you're going for your PSIR preparation,
Mhm.
what exact notes and what exact strategy did you follow? Because 261 this year is a really good score,
Mhm.
because after Ishita Kishore 315, like most of the people are not getting a good score. Like even who are scoring really well, getting ranks, etc., they are also uh, not getting somewhere around 260 or maybe less than that as well. So what did you exactly use? Like you can mention the coaching institute's name as well, whatever, if you join some, or you can mention like whatever genuinely you did. um,
So I would be saying something quite honestly. For
mhm,
political science national relation paper one section, I have almost entirely relied on Subra Madam notes. Uh,
mhm,
Paper one section A notes, the Western
mhm,
political thought. I have almost entirely relied on Subra Madam notes. This year for section B, I have used the Utkarsh notes, the rank five of my own batch only. Utkarsh rank five.
Utkarsh Dwivedi, yes.
He
Mhm,
Dwivedi. He
mhm,
has some really good notes for the section B part of the paper one.
mhm,
So I have
mhm,
used them. I have quoted them in my answers as well. However, my when I was preparing, I had thought that I will be attempting more questions from the section B in paper one. But when
mhm,
paper comes in your hand, it is really difficult for you to decide what you are going to attempt.
mhm,
Uh, Now comes this second part, the paper two. The paper
mhm,
B is where your real knowledge and real interest in the optionals will be tested. If you are
mhm,
really interested in political science national relation, that's the area where you have to perform. Like there are general complaints in the PSIR paper that we are not getting good marks in paper two. But in my
mhm,
case, fortunately, in both the years, I have got more than 130
mhm,
in both the years, 2021, 2022 as well. This is this is my own perception that for paper two, your knack and interest in this political science national international relation paper would be coming into picture, would be coming into play. Like when you are quoting C. Raja Mohan, we were quoting Pant. So there you know some sort of background that yes, this was the historical relations between India and USA, and now this way these things are moving forward. So since you
mhm,
have interest, your answers will be reflecting your interests and your own understanding about the topics. And I believe that paper two is one such area where your own germane and authentic knowledge will be put into practice into the paper only. So paper one, you can study from the sources. I have already mentioned Subra Ranjan Madam. They have really good notes. Paper two, read newspapers, use websites of ORF, Ministry of External Affairs. And since I work in Indian Information Service, I know PIV section of MEA has really good contents for preparation, even for the UPSC. For the mains, they have really good contents for PIV. Use them; they will be really handy in paper two.
One complaint regarding PSIR, like I've been listening to it a lot. Uh, so this friend of mine who is already in one service,
Mm-hmm.
so he got two marks in the 270s when he got selected. This year he appeared in the interview again and got somewhere around 230. So he was really frustrated by the checking, and he said that when I am looking at these topper copies, uh, I cannot find anything different from my own answers. So this happens in PSIR a lot. When you see the topper copies, except for Utkarsh's copies, like this is what I've heard, and
Mhm.
like everybody is writing the same Shubhra notes in the answers, in particularly in paper one. So what do you think, according to your own understanding? Do you share the same feeling, or do you think that people who are getting more marks, they are using the things that you are mentioning, some current affairs, something extra, apart from the basic material that everybody is doing? So what is your opinion on that?
So you have touched one part where my entire fear lies for my next attempt. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
if I get a drubbing in my PSIR optional only?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm honestly saying this year also I had a feeling like I have not performed up to the mark. What I was thinking for, at least for paper one, I was thinking that at least I should be doing something more, but I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do in paper one.
Mm-hmm.
The fear always is there, like what if you get a drubbing? But for that
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand that there is some sort of stagnation also in the mind of UPSC PSIR copy checkers, that entire source, entire notes, political thinkers, almost everything word by word nowadays is copied in almost every stack of the answer copies. So there would be stagnation also. You have to use your own knowledge. This year I was thinking, like, in paper 1 section B, I would be using some really nascent political thinkers like Sanjeev Sanyal, principal economic advisor. I was thinking to quote him in some of the answers. I was thinking to quote even Pushpesh Pant in some of the answers. But I, when the paper came in my hand and I was in Patna Center paper came 30 minutes late. So things got so intense for me, I couldn't use them. But I believe that the variation and some sort of advancement in the marks should be coming, applying the same authenticity of knowledge which I apply in paper 2, where my
Mm-hmm.
authenticity gets tested. But in my paper 1 answers, somewhat ready-made content I am able to give, and that's why I am not getting increase that should be there in the paper 1. Since you only scored 163, so you know better how optional marks are these days coming. Like, if you are giving some sort of authentic knowledge and some sort of different knowledge from the traditional coaching institutes, you would be getting good marks. So this is in the back
So
of mind. I will be
so
applying them.
just to like mention something that works, because I've written mains several times and I've seen people getting single digits and double digits, a lot of them. So one thing that I've understood is that do you share the same feeling? I just tell my understanding that generally in
Mhm.
optional paper, be it PSIR, anthropology, sociology, history, philosophy, psychology, all these optional, there are 10 marker questions and there are 20 and 15 marker questions. All the people attempt the 20 markers really well because you have enough time. In the 10 markers, it generally happens there are, if you talk about your optional, there are 20 questions which are
Mhm.
10 markers, 200 marks there. So
Mhm.
people do not attempt them well enough. So that is something that people do not do. And secondly, I think, so do you also share the same feeling when you're talking to your fellow aspirants as well as or your own understanding, like you do not write enough content and you do not prioritize them enough? Somehow you're writing like everybody's writing similar sort of content in 20 markers because you have more time, and in 10 markers because there is less time, so the competition increases and people do not focus on them. So is this something that you also share the feeling about it?
This year, about 2022 paper, I would be sharing some interesting thing about PSIR. In the
Mm-hmm.
10 marker question only, I think I have defaulted. In the
Mm-hmm.
10 marker question only, there were two questions about one concept about power there is.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't mention the exact concept that is needed in those questions, because in the
Mm-hmm.
back of the mind it was like which section I will be selecting these 20 markers, this 15 markers, two question I will be selecting. In the back of the mind, that only was happening. So
Mm-hmm.
I personally believe that in 2022 attempt, if paper one I have somewhat not performed good marks, then that
Mm-hmm.
only is the problem. The 10
Mm-hmm.
marker question is where I have defaulted. I haven't written the exact core that was needed. I missed
Mm-hmm.
it because I was really concerned as to how I will be attempting those 20, 15, 15 marker questions. I
Mm-hmm.
now believe that if I have to rectify my strategy, then equal importance has also to be given to those 10 marker questions from where the marks should be coming and where the difference in the answers can be caused.
So this is interesting, and also, like, since you mentioned about using a nascent political thinker, so I was recently sitting with somebody who's a renowned faculty for one of the optionals, and
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that these people have also understood this thing, and now they are using Sanjeev Sanyal and um, all these people in their questions when they're making questions for, like, the recent test series that is going to come. So they are asking questions from there, and they are also thinking of updating their material, etc., so that the answers of people can be unique. So there is some sort of stagnation. All the PSIR is extremely developed subject, I think, for UPSC preparation particularly. So
Mm-hmm.
because of that, maybe we are seeing scores in the 240s and 260s, and maybe a lot of them scoring in the 230s.
Mm-hmm.
Same goes with your sociology and anthropology and all these subjects as well. So Saurabh, now, like, we talk. Let's move on to the next section. You talked about PSIR.
Mm-hmm.
General things people, all of the people know. Utkarsh Dwivedi has written a really beautiful blog about, like, how to go about it, etc. So people can read that. But some really practical and your own experiences you have shared regarding prelims. Firstly, I would like to get a response from you. How did you how was your first reaction and first response and your analysis of what happened in prelims of 2022 and also the CSAT paper? So how do you tackle
2022?
sorry,
2022 one?
2023, the recent one? So
Research.
how do you tackle such a paper? There are different views. There are people who are really angry at the paper setters, that these people are not testing the knowledge there, but they are actually allowing just random guesswork and uh, to work in the exam. So what is your understanding of the prelims paper, and how should one who is preparing for the next attempt prepare for this really difficult and really random exam?
So as I was already saying, that prelims nowadays is where the entire preparation of your would be hinging.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, while there would be complaints that questions
Mm-hmm.
are difficult, they are allowing guessworks to do. I
Mm-hmm.
seriously don't know how I would be approaching these kind of things. But
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that still there is a scope of correctly answering at least 35 questions.
Mm-hmm.
And after 35 questions, I really don't know if I say calculated guesswork, if I say pure guesswork, or if more absurdly I say pure luck. I really don't know
Mm-hmm.
what I have to term it actually. But then that 35 to 40, 30 to 35 questions should be there where your knowledge would come into play. Trust your knowledge, trust your preparation, that would come into play for 30 to 35 questions. And my really newer worry these days as far as pre is concerned is CSAT. There is absolutely no no way to even explain how the CSAT paper nowadays is coming. So I think the equal time has to be devoted also to CSAT nowadays. The GS prepare for those 30 to 35 questions, prepare your knowledge. There are people who are actually like clearing prelims almost on regular basis, like 1 2 3 4, almost in every attempts they are clearing prelims. So there the knowledge is coming into play. So this says that even if the questions are random, even if the guesswork scope are there, but still those 30 to 35 questions they are able to actually answer from their own knowledge. So it
Mm-hmm.
says that there is significance still for the knowledge, and
Mm-hmm.
there is space still for the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I really don't have the term as to what exactly it has to be said. Yes, there are some guessworks, calculated risks, but at then that is what the life is. You have to take calculated risks even for your own attempts. So,
So
what can you?
this year particularly, I think the CSAT paper in particular, GS, I think there can be different views about it,
Mm-hmm.
but my personal understanding has been there are certain themes from there where they do ask questions. You need to prepare them better than others, and
Mm-hmm.
through that you can work for the GS paper. But for CSAT, I think I've seen people who have appeared in 3 interviews back to back and then not able to qualify CSAT even after, like, being really good students back in the day and really
Mm-hmm.
good at maths, etc. So CSAT is something, as you are saying, probably somebody who is not really good at maths or reasoning or English comprehension, they should be
Mm-hmm.
focusing beginning from, if they're preparing for 24, then beginning from now they should do a little bit of work for CSAT and not take it for granted. Uh, Regarding your prelims preparation, since you obviously you cleared for two consecutive prelims, and the first prelims you were
Mhm.
not able to clear, so uh, you actually cracked one of the 2021 attempt, 2022 attempt. Those were also very tough GS prelims papers. You can
Mhm.
just look at it from the cutoff that is going below 90. So obviously those were tough papers as well. So how did you prepare for your prelims paper? How many tests, mock tests that you did, and did you solve a lot of PYQs? At the same time, when did you start preparing for your um, dedicated prelims preparation after the setback in 2020?
So my prelims preparation started after the setback in 2020 prelims only. It was
Mm-hmm.
the 4th October. I remember the paper of 2020 happened, and
Yes,
my
4th
college
October.
examination also were going. So I was bit of hurdling between the college examination, my final year
Mm-hmm.
examination, and the prelims preparation. So
Mm-hmm.
beforehand, I knew I wouldn't clear prelims.
Mm-hmm.
I squandered that attempt. I don't know it was the right decision or not. But
Mm-hmm.
again, prelims these days are like that only. You simply can prepare only up to the 30 to 35 questions. After
Mm-hmm.
that, it is really difficult to prepare. So from where that 30 to 35 question preparation would come? It would come from the NCRTs. Those
Mm-hmm.
are still the primary source for the prelims.
Mm-hmm.
Refer to them. The second will be coming from the test series. Around
Mm-hmm.
20 to 30 tests, I believe that would be needed to
Mm-hmm.
at least get adapted to these kind of questions that they are asking. If not knowledge, then adaptation would be required for these kind of questions. Like in GS, like in 2021, my own experience says it was really difficult. 2022, I didn't feel like that, but 2021, I really felt it was so random. Sports section they added.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can prepare for that. Even in test series, if I would say, like, give around 200 test series, that has no meaning. No coaching test series comes up with those kind of questions from sports section. Even if you
Mm-hmm.
are like having interest in cricket, you would still not be answering those questions from the prelims. So
Mm-hmm.
leave them. However, refer to the NCRTs, refer to the, even if coaching centers you are getting some good notes, get them.
Mm-hmm.
Art and culture, you still have no better material than Nitin Singhania. Refer to
Mm-hmm.
them. Those are still basic notes from where your
Mm-hmm.
basic plinth would be coming. Pillar can
Mm-hmm.
be made even after that, even 30 to 35 question if you are making. After that, we can see what can be done.
Mm-hmm.
But for 30 to 35 question, you have to prepare still from that basic and primary sources that are usually referred for the prelims. That
Mm-hmm.
would be coming from your NCRTs, from your own notes, from your own static portion notes, history knowledge, geography knowledge. That would be coming from your own basic textbooks. So refer to that only. After that, it would be really difficult to guess as to what would be coming for you.
So Saurabh, I think we have discussed in detail regarding the mains preparation, particularly in the
Mhm.
last 1 hour. I
Mhm.
think you have shared genuine understanding and genuine views regarding the exam. Your understanding is pretty mature and really good to listen to your views. I think the viewers will also learn a thing or two from you, from your own journey. I wanted to talk more about a few more things, but I think time has run out. So we'll talk about it later on, some
Yeah.
other day if you can find time. So then we'll talk about some other aspects of the exam, so that the initiatives purposes that people can learn. So there are basic toppers talks are available, but at the same time, it is important that what genuinely people felt when appearing in mains and prelims and all these stages. So thank you so much for taking out time while you are undergoing your training as well, and looking forward to having more of such conversations with you.
Thank you so much, Vikas sir. It was really good conversation with you.
Okay, Saurabh. Then we'll wind up the
Yes.
interview now. Thank you.
Yes. Bye, guys.